Ek klim vir 'n treinrit wat my glo my lewe gaan weerspieël. Klomp stasies op my pad. Sommige mooier as ander, maar elk uniek. En dan die moerkoffie, die lewe se vernis, rond, vol, geurig en vol smaak, ryk en lekker. Drink hom slukkie vir slukkie, geniet hom. Laat hy oor die tong rol, want by jou stasie is die rit verby. Die rit weet te flits van die geheue.
Yes, my ou vriend, hoe lyk dinge daar by jou? Wow, Vrydag man. Ja, is al Vrydagmiddag, Chila tyd. Hier op die Moerkoffie Express. Ons het die trein se wiele lekker gepolish en seker gemaak daar is genoeg stoom in die ketel vir môreoggend. So ja, asseblief, môreoggend 8 tot 10. Kom luister 'n bietjie saam na die Moerkoffie Express, net hier op Radio Suid-Afrika. Hierdie week 'n lekker hektiek week by die werk en ook na ure. So ek was maar altyd besig met 'n ding of twee. En ek bring vir jou hierdie, kom ons noem dit maar podcast. So 1 of 2 keer, partykeer 3 keer 'n week, afhangende van wat so goeders alles gebeur en so meer. Maar hierdie week 'n paar belangrike goed wat my opgeval het. Die oubaas met die bles, hy raak blijkbaar 70. Ek praat van Trevor Manuel, hy stap af as voorsitter, chairman by Old Mutual. Dit na so 'n paar jaar terug was al maar so 'n groot debakel daar gewees, maar hulle sê die oud nou te oud geraak om verder te gaan. Nee, meneer, hy is te oud nou. So, ja, anyway, dan ook hier in die baai die kragkrisis en ook die waterkrisis voort, want wat gebeur is dat ons pale, daai groot pale, hulle val om, hulle moer om, okay, maar hulle moer nie om as gevolg van die wind nie, die storie rondom Geberga of, soos ek het noem, daar baai, Port Elizabeth die baai, is nie dat dit die wind is nie, dit is as gevolg van swak onderhoud, die goed het eenvoudig begin roes, wat jy sien metaal roes, al galvanize jy dit ook, het roes nog steeds, so die paalde val nog steeds om, en ja, ek dink die hele munisipaliteit is al besig om finaal om te val, so ek gaan nie veel meer daaroor sê nie. Dan die krisis voort, en dit rondom Amerika en sy oorlog. Die oorlog wat Donald Trump al 2 keer verklaar het, hulle het gewen. Maar hulle is nog steeds besig. So ja, dis is om besig te wees om 'n koek te bak. En dan is die koek nog eers klaar uit die oondtyd nie, maar dan sê jy klaar, hey, ons eet koek, jy weet. So hy eet oorwinnings, Donald Trump. Hy is ou wat ingestel is, hy's 'n sportman. Alles moet gewen word. Maar nou ja, tot aanstoot van baie mense, tot binne die Republieke Party, die Republikeine begin hom ook al kritiseer. Oor eerstens, wat was die rede vir die oorlog? Wie het vir jou ingetrek in hierdie oorlog in? Wat ek meen, wat het jou laat dink dat jy kan gemeenskap, 'n nasie wat al 2700 jaar gelede begin is, kan jy sommer net gaan aanval? Lekker wind gehad, nee. Ja, ons gaan sommer daarin en ons dink ons kan van hulle gaan aanval en hulle omgooi. Nou volgens alle aanduidings had 'n paar manne al vanaf sy militêre kant af bedank. Ek dink hulle is te bly die skaam om hulle self verder te assosieer met hierdie oorlog en so aan. En dan natuurlik ook, hy het nog steeds Fox News, onder andere ouens soos Hannity wat sy beelblaas die hele tyd, maar daar is baie mense wat met feite voor 'n dag kom, soos in hierdie kort uittreksels wat ek vir jou bring.
I say in theory because I'm not sure we were ever terribly sincere about it, but our two real estate billionaires, Witkoff and Kushner, were representing the president, and they were actually negotiating with the Iranian government when the Israelis launched their strikes. In response, President Trump seems to have said, okay, they've started, we need to join the fight, so let's get on with this. And the consequence of that decision has put the whole world in an economic tailspin, because it's not simply 25% of the oil, 50% or more of China's oil comes through the Straits of Hormuz, 73% of Japan's oil, 68% of South Korea's oil, more than 50% of India's oil. So just stop and consider that, because we just named the top economies in the world. I mean, these are the engines of economic productivity and prosperity globally. What happens there makes a big difference, not just to those people, billions of people in Asia, but to us. Secondly, the Iranians struck back at us. They hit all of our bases in the region. We continue to whine and say, oh, no, we still have bases and not everybody is gone. Well, you have a few people at these places. They spend most of their time in underground shelters. We're not using any of the bases, and we cannot use any of the bases at this point. They destroyed all of the early warning radars. This is very important, because that means that your warning time is very, very short. In other words, missiles are coming at you with some of these radars almost immediately. They're all gone now. That means that you're being surprised and given like 3-4 minutes warning before you get into the shelter. Israel itself has been virtually destroyed. It sustained damage far, far beyond anything that was seen during the first so-called 12-day war with Israel. And the Israeli state, I think, is in a lot of trouble. Now, what have we done? Well, we've killed some of the top echelon of the leadership in Iran in an unprecedented sort of way. We've adopted this sort of Israeli approach to war, which is we try to assassinate all of your leaders. Ultimately, that has not worked very well, because the Iranians were prepared for it, and they had very clearly delineated chains of succession. So virtually everybody who was killed, frankly, knew they were likely to be killed and had already designated people to replace them. Secondly, the Iranians knew they could never stand up to our Air Force. They could probably shoot down some of us if they were lucky, and they had practically no Air Force to begin with. A lot of people are listening to President Trump say, well, I destroyed Iran's Air Force. Well, it wasn't much to destroy. And then he says, well, we've destroyed their Navy. Well, 7 frigates is about all the Iranians had. Everything else were small little patrol boats or motorboats. They do have some diesel submarines. I don't know whether or not those have been accounted for, because the Navy doesn't like diesel subs because they're very, very hard to track, especially in shallow water. But my point is, Iran knew all of these things were going to happen. So where did they put all of their investment over the last 20 years? Well, they put it into huge underground facilities that are very, very safe. And they have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of missiles. Before the war began, the best estimate that I could get from people I trust was 45,000 missiles. Now, they're not going to run out of missiles. And the interesting part is that during the first few days, they hurled at the Israelis and us relatively old missile technology. Over the last few days, they've started to use their hypersonic precision-guided weapons, which are very, very accurate, very devastating, and they cannot be stopped. In other words, it doesn't matter what sort of air and missile defense you have, they can't be stopped. So they're hitting anything they aim at. And I was interested to listen to the 4-star General Kane sort of talk about, well, we struck 5,000 targets, we've killed all these leaders, woof, woof, woof. I thought I was listening to a briefing back in 1967 in Vietnam. We've gone out there, we've dropped this many bombs, and everything, as though that was some sort of indicator of victory. It never was. In fact,
hoe kan jy nou met hierdie mense argumenteer en stry? Maar jy sien, Trump is deel van popkultuur. Hy deel geraak van popkultuur. Of het sy intenties was, en of het nie dit was nie, hy is soos 'n popstar, hy is soos Prince, Elvis Presley, enige van daai mense, sportshelde en so meer. Gedurende sy eerste termyn het hy van 'n bus af geklim en gesê, hy geroep sommer hierdie mooi meisies wat so agter sy lyf aan is. Want kyk, hy is baie bewus daarvan dat hy is 'n vreeslike aantreklike man, a beautiful man. En hy gesê, hy gryp hulle sommer daar by die bos. En baie mense wou hom gestenig het daai tyd. En so, maar as 'n klomp mense wat hom verdedig het. Dit is goed as 'n president so praat, neem ek aan. Okay. En even een van my gunsteling wêreldwye sosiale media, wil ek amper sê koninginne, Katie Hopkins, het dit te sê gehad.
Can I ask you, is there any part of you as a mother of 2 daughters that this is the man who talked about grabbing women by the pussy? Is there any part of you that feels this is not my guy? I don't want this guy to be talking like this about any woman.
Sweetie, I would rather be grabbed by the pussy than have a pussy for president.
And you're happy with that language?
I'm very happy with that language. Look, none of us are that polite behind closed doors. My girlfriends have ruder language. Real men have ruder language. The gentleman clapping is a real man, obviously. Really? That was a private conversation 8 years ago before he was running. Monica Lewinsky was on her knees with Hillary stood right by her. So I don't know if you're going to say that's any better, sweetie, because I don't think it is.
Wat ek meen, Trump is pop culture. Jy kan niks van hom sien, ja, vol mense jou aan. Ek het gisteroggend op Isak se podcast, ek is maar nie so dingetjie gegooi, het hulle weer so Trump, die beste ding sinds pakkies kutsop. En sê ek so ietsie daar, toe sal maar vinnig 2 dames, Afrikaanse dames, ons mense, wat gaan, nee, jy kan nie so van Trump praat nie. Trump is king, ek glo, en net een man, en dis Trump. Dan gaan ek so 'n soort van
I love it when you talk foreign.
Nou ja, daar het jy dit. Donald Trump, the greatest leader from the greatest country in the world. Ek sê altyd, jy moet ook maar kyk, baie van hierdie gode wat ons vir onsself skep, hierdie pop artists, pop politicians, populiste, dat ek maar voete van klei. Ja, kom ons maak 'n bietjie 'n draai by die Mkhwanazi kommissie. Wat kan ons sê opkoms wat is 'n slukkie moerkoffie? Die Mkhwanazi kommissie, daar gebeur net te veel daarso. Het lyk my die parlementêre komitee het nou so half tot 'n einde gekom. Want ons het 'n man gesien daarso hierdie week. En ek gaan vir jou net so 'n paar snippets gee. Hierdie ou, volgens party mense het hy bombshells gedrop, dis daar 'n soort van pan. Bombshells, dropping a bombshell. Party ouens drop sommer 'n nuclear bom, so sekere lande wil doen met ander lande. En dan het jy ouens wat mense onder die bus ingooi. Maar hoe dan nou anders? Wat ek meen, dit is dan nou wat gebeur het. Maar hierdie week lyk dit vir my die parlementêre komitee wat om welke rede hierdie mense ondervra. Ek weet nie wat is what's the end game met dit nie. Ons weet wat is die Mkhwanazi of die Mkhwanazi se werk, wat gaan hulle doen? Hulle gaan 'n verslag voorlê en so meer. Ek weet nie of hulle van die parlementêre komitee ook 'n verslag gaan kry om te sê, hey, check vir daai ou en check vir daai ou, moenie laat hy deur die gate in die net gaan nie. En so, maar hierdie week het hulle afgesluit met 'n man wat berekend is. Hy kyk jou vas in die oë as hy met jou praat. Hy is selfversekerd, hy weet waarvan hy praat, hy is intellektueel en hy is slim, man. Hy is slim. En baie ouens probeer om vir luitenant-generaal Mkhwanazi so 'n soort van op die spotlight te kry om te kyk waar kan hulle gate in sy mondering vind. Jy weet, Ashley Sals het gesê, you're the hero with holes in you. But still, thank you very much for coming forward, for breaking out of that noose and bringing us this.
If we can just go to the briefing of the 6th of July, and you've got the memorandum which we also made available to the committee. During the press briefing, you made these allegations: an organized crime syndicate, drug cartel is infiltrating the criminal justice system. Is that still your view?
That is correct, Honorable Chair.
Then you say the incident that triggered the disbandment of the PKTT was the arrest of Mr. Katiso Molefe on the 6th of December, who is believed to be one of the members of the syndicate. Is that still your view?
That's correct.
Senior members of the security cluster who are associated with the crime syndicate issued instructions without the authority of the National Commissioner for the removal of case dockets. That's a reference to General SIbiya, is it?
That's correct.
A potentially corrupt relationship existed between an alleged associate of the Minister of Police, named as Mr. Brown Mkhwanazi, and the Minister of Police, Mr. Mkhwanazi. Is that still your view?
That is correct.
A potentially corrupt relationship existed between Mr. Vusumuzi Matlala, who was awarded a police healthcare contract of over 360 million rand in 2024, Brown Mkhwanazi and Minister Mkhwanazi. Is that still your view?
That is correct.
That a member of parliament used potentially classified information that was passed from crime intelligence officials to register cases against crime intelligence officials. This member also sent communication to the Minister of Police and requested him to refer the matter to an independent investigative body to investigate these matters. Is that a reference to Honorable Adams?
That's correct.
And the reference to the independent, that's a reference to the matter ending up with IDEC that then resulted in the arrest of Lieutenant General Khumalo.
That is correct.
Then you also say unnamed prosecutors in Gauteng are part of a crime syndicate, which also involves politicians, law enforcement, that includes SAPS, Metro Police and Correctional Services, judiciary, and is controlled by drug cartel as well as business people.
That's
That's
correct.
still your view.
Yes.
These unnamed prosecutors, are they unnamed because of classified information that you have, or are they unnamed because you don't know who they are? Either you've been told who they are or you suspect who they are, but can you not share it with us?
Well, it is known who they are, some of them, but we cannot share because this investigation is conducted.
If jy so 'n paar grepe uit Luitenant-Generaal Mkhwanazi getuienis wat hy gelewer het daarvoor die parlementêre komitee.
There was also seizure of a substantial, I'm not sure what the amount was, maybe over 200 million of drugs, hard drugs, I think Mandrex, seized. But when he made further inquiries about the matter, it appeared as if the drugs were gone, they were lost. What
Honorable
happening?
Chair, I'm not in Western Cape, so I will not necessarily have the details, but in having listened and watched this commission on television, the Honorable Mr. Adams, when he presented here, when he was asked the question, how did he know about it? He said he was told. So the moment the person says that, but is 100% sure this what happened, it is questionable. What I said before, and I'm going to say again, South Africans must know, you must know, that drugs in the main that are found in crime scene, me as a provincial commissioner, I cannot guarantee 100% that entire consignment that is found in a crime scene is the same consignment that lands at forensic. It's the same consignment that is destroyed. Firearms are found in crime scene. On register, they are destroyed, but the police find the same firearm in another crime scene. So if it can happen with guns, the likelihood is that it can happen with drugs.
I'm shocked.
Do you share the view of Lieutenant General Khumalo that some 90% of SAPS officers in Gauteng are on some or other payroll of these drug syndicates?
I might not talk about the percentage, but what I can talk about, Honorable Chair and members, that I've said before, we have three categories of employees in the organization. We have the hard-working ones, that are straight to the point in the fighting crime. We have the corrupt one in the opposite that are participating in the wrong. And we have the missing middle who don't want to act and just turn a blind eye on what is happening, the lazy ones. So some of them are influenced by fear and for them not to act. So if you fail to act where you're supposed to act as a police officer, you're as good as a bad one. So those are categories of employees we have. The biggest problem of wrong that is done by the South African Police Service in the country, you'll find it in all provinces, but mainly we'll find it in Gauteng, and mainly you'll find it in the borders. The border police, good percentage of the members working there, they're not good. A big percentage, I won't put the number. In Gauteng province, majority of the members that are working there are not necessarily doing good things. But I'm the one that came here and said, 2 junior members, sergeants, they started this chaos, if we call it a chaos, but they uncovered these problems that we've been talking about in Gauteng. Those are the 2 members that invited Jara Kumalo to join them and his team. It's those 2 members that led into other detectives and other members to join them. Those 2 members that led me in KZN to become involved. Unfortunately, they are still sergeants. Despite all that, they are still remain sergeants. They are still not sleeping at home. We must accept that we have quite a lot of bad apples amongst us.
Yeah, General Masemola yesterday described it as perhaps as an exaggeration, but he also said that as far as he was concerned, most of the police officers are honest and hardworking.
A good percentage, yes, but there's also a good percentage not.
Does the same apply to politicians?
Yeah, well, we've named some politicians that are part of us.
Ja, wat 'n openbarende stuk getuienis van Luitenant-Generaal Mkhwanazi. Jy moet die hele ding gaan kyk. Dit is op YouTube, gaan kyk dit. Hierdie is maar net so 'n paar hoogtepunte goed wat hy oor gepraat het. Ons as normale publiek sit salig onbewus van baie van hierdie goed wat hy van gepraat het. En ons slaap lekker in die aande, want die polisie kyk na ons. Hoe verkeerd kan ons wees? Baie van hierdie goed wat hy praat oor wapens wat gevind word op misdaadtonele, weet ek al, omdat ek in die bedryf is al vir 42 jaar, weet ek van. Wat ek meen, waar wapens wat afgeneem word by kriminele, gaan weer uit. Ons weet ons van 'n paar manne wat wapens verkoop het, groot hoeveelhede wapens uit die polisie se arsenaal uit. So, dit is ook nie meer 'n geheim nie. Maar dit wat hy sê rondom die personeel, daar's 3 kategorieë, is absoluut vir my klassiek. Dis absoluut klassiek. En ek glo die president is geskok, want hy het gister uit die bloute uitgekom. En gesê dat hy glad nie betrokke was nie. Hy is nog nie eens, soos ek verstaan, wil hy nie, hy en die ander doknekke, soos Verkiele en so, wil glad nie op die kommissies getuig nie, maar hy het gister uit die bloute uitgekom. Hy het gesê, hy het niks met die PKTT se kansellasie te doen nie. Ek sê altyd, jy weet, wanneer iemand vir jou inligting gee waarvan jy nie gevra het nie, dink maar so 'n bietjie daaroor. Maar dan laastens het ek hierdie ou vir jou, Prins Mshaba. Wat 'n kleurvolle karakter is hy nie. 2 boeke geskryf al, so ek verstaan. Hy is 'n absolute gesoute politieke analis en baie van sy goed het al waar geword. Soos Siener van Rensburg se goed wat baie mense glo het waar geword. En wat vir my opvallend was van hierdie ene, hy was daar by Business, het hy saam met 'n klomp ouens soos Corneille Mulder en Bob Hersoff en al die ouens te gepraat. Maar hy het hierdie meesterplan, 10-punt plan, hoe om Suid-Afrika weer op sy voete te bring. En hierdie plan van hom kan in baie gedeeltes kan eintlik werk vir enige instansie. Ook 'n private instansie. Goedjies wat jy net kan doen en dinge regkry. Luister 'n bietjie na hierdie man.
I've actually prepared a list. We have them in our society. They are not in government. Government is a theater of scoundrels. So we must get those people to go into the political theater. And it's going to be a fight. And elbow out the scoundrels. Let the proper human beings of our country take over. Point number 2, jail political criminals and restore law and order, and you must be merciless about it. Beginning with the guy you used to love, who has disappointed you very badly, Cyril Ramaphosa, must be arrested for pala. If any one of you was found with dollars in your sofa, the ones he has not denied, you would be in prison. Why is he not in prison? Point number 3, flush out deployed cadres from government and professionalize the public service. You get in there. Helen said it's difficult to fire these people. It's not. It is very easy. The highest level administratively is the DG. The second is the DDG. The third is Chief Director. The fourth is Director. The 3, you get in there. These people have committed one crime or another. You suspend them with immediate effect without pay. You know where they will run? They will run to the labor court. The labor court will say, hey, it's a labor dispute. Have you tried the CSMA? That's the first point. You starve the CSMA of money. You clog the system. You appoint acting heads of in these positions. You implement. By the time these cases are finalized after 4 years, you are busy campaigning for the next election. It can be done. 4th, reposition public schools and higher education institutions for the delivery of quality education with an emphasis on mathematics, science, and technology. I am not aware of a country that was poor that turned itself around without maths, science, and technology being at the center of that project. And there has to be strong leadership pushing that agenda. 5th, make public clinics and hospitals work again. Sounds like Trump. Make public clinics and hospitals work again. You don't need an NHI. Let your clinic wherever you are work. If you live in a suburb, your clinic and your hospital in the suburb must work. If you live in the township, your clinic must be clean, there must be a specialist, there must be goodness, and it must work. Forget about the NHI. Chris Hani Baragwanath in Johannesburg is the biggest hospital in Africa. It was built by the apartheid government. Why did they build the biggest hospital in Soweto? Because Soweto is the biggest township in South Africa. So the people of Soweto, when they are sick, must never be taken to Sandton. They must be taken to Chris Hani Baragwanath. That works. 6, simple. Cut out red tape and make it easy to do business in South Africa and mobilize both domestic and international investors to invest in this country. If you sort out some of the things that I've already spoken about, investors will come. So, first thing you do, you hold up this piece of paper. It's called expropriation without compensation. You tear it up. The people who came up with this piece of law, by the way, they have not even implemented it. The only purpose it serves is to scare away investors. That's the only. Tell me what has been expropriated on the basis of this law. Absolutely nothing. Even if they wanted to expropriate, by the way, so don't be scared, they are grossly incompetent. 7, replace BEE with a redress program that focuses on 2 areas. 1, the provision of quality education for black children, and 2, the economic empowerment of workers. So instead of a few fat cats who are politically connected to make money from the equity you give them in the name of BEE, Why can't you redirect that to your employees? So you say, here is a category of employees. If you belong to this category, you will benefit from this scheme. If you are above, sorry, you won't. This is what it would do. No color attached to it. But we know the majority of low-paid employees in South Africa are black. You would empower people who are involved in the creation of wealth in that company. Number two, if there is a white worker who belongs to that category, why are you excluding that white worker? Because there's no difference between the white worker and the black colleague. In any case, they will do the same job. If we do not focus on maths and science in black schools, townships, and rural areas, we are doomed. Whatever Helen tells you, it's not going to happen. 3 minutes. So, seventh, rebuild public infrastructure is the easiest. It's the easiest. A road, I'm sure there are engineers here. I was in Lichtenberg 3 weeks ago. It's true, it's broken. But it's the easiest to, I can tell you, any engineer can design a plan in 6 months to a year, you can rebuild those roads. It's not complicated. It's the easiest to do. Rebuild public infrastructure. Eighth, restore the integrity of the South African citizenship, secure our borders, and stem the inflow of illegal foreigners. If you do not do that, we will never solve our problems. First system. You've got to investigate that, flush them out. If you are in South Africa legally, you are welcome. If you are in South Africa illegally, we deport you mercilessly. 10, which is the last bit. I'm left with one, I'm a good time manager. Restore, carry out a substantive moral regeneration in society. I am black. I have a house in Bushbuck Ridge in a black community. My mother lives there. I also have a house in Broncos Spring. By the way, I live in Gauteng full time, and I'm not about to emigrate to the Western Cape. So don't count me, so don't worry. I'm happy in Gauteng. And me and those who love this country, we will fight and fix this country. This country must be fixed holistically. You can't have one bubble called Hermanus working and the rest is... When real shit hits the fan, let me tell you guys, you will not be protected here. But anyway, my community, the black community in the townships and in the rural areas are broken. Alcoholism, drugs, there's a drug called Nyaupe. The youth are in trouble. We have to sort out that stuff. That's what I call moral regeneration. As I conclude, I'm left with 42 seconds. The ANC is the embodiment of black politics. We have done that. We can never go back to that nonsense. We have seen what it does. The DA is an embodiment of white politics. I'm going to be very bold and tell you what you don't want to hear. It's an embodiment of white politics. We have done white politics. We cannot go back there. The only option is a new project that we have not experimented with. I know you say, oh, we have tried with this and that. I can tell you the plan that I have developed, you haven't seen it. Thank you.
Wel, daar het jy dit, wat ek meen, die achtbare. Hy is definitief achtbaar. Prins Mshaba met sy plan, die een wat ek die meeste van hou is oor hoe hy ouens gaan fire, want ons word ons altyd gekniehalter die Department of Labour en die CCMA en die arbeidswetgewing, wat ons as die publiek moet handhaaf. En in die regering self is dit altyd 'n issue. Ja, ons kan nie net ontslae raak van hom nie. Wat ek meen, ons kan hom nie net fire nie. Ons kan hom nie net op 'n verhoor gooi nie. Jy weet, ons kan hom nie net skors nie, spesifiek. Sonder pay, soos hy voorstel. Ons kan niks van daai goed doen nie. Ja, pas op vir die prins, as die prins. Ek wil ons maar noem die prins of Douglas, want ek dink hierdie ou gaan net soveel lig vir ons bring in hierdie land, in terme van om goed reg te ruk. Maar ja, kom ons ruk môreoggend nog so 'n paar goeders reg op die Moerkoffie Express. Jy moet 'n wonderlike naweek hê. Sien jou môreoggend net op die trein 8uur. Moenie vergeet nie. Staan op die stasie, ek laai jou op. Radio South Africa, your voice. 24/7.